Good evening, YouTube. Better late than never, I guess they say. Or good things comes to those who wait, I'm guessing. Thank you all for coming. I know I've probably pushed this stream harder around for everyone than possible because I think you're all going to want to listen to this guy. He's not really a massive YouTube presence, but he is a big gaming presence. So without further ado, you don't want to really listen to me. You've heard me 30 times before. So I'll introduce my guest. Say hello to everyone. Introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Perry, the Games Animal. How are you?
I'm good, Dave. First of all, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
We've got a massive, little following of people who watch me do these streams. This is the 31st stream I've done since lockdown. So basically, we just talk gaming and YouTube and stuff like that. So that's kind of the thing we're going to be doing tonight. So the first question I ask everyone, Dave, is how'd your life change during lockdown?
Well, you know, I've been tattooing full time now for the last 13, 14 years. And tattooing, when I made the move into tattooing, it's very much a lifestyle choice. It's something I've been doing for years and then made move into it full time. And basically you live, sleep and breathe it. You know, when you come home at night, you're drawing for the next day, you know, all through the day, you're tattooing people. And you know, it takes up all your time. Now, all of a sudden, I've got time on my hands, which I haven't had for years. And I'm gardening. I love the garden. Painting the house. You know, the wife's keeping me busy. I'm not sure if she likes having me around, but she likes having me around to boss around, if you like. And we're gaming. You know, we've been playing PS4. We got God of War. We've been playing that, and we got the Connect out. Great bowling and sports and silly family games, really. But generally, just chilling out. I've not had a holiday for years and years and years and years. And this is a holiday. I got no money. You know, I'm not earning any money. You know, thank you to the government for what they are giving me. But then again, when you're a self-employed individual, you don't get any money when you go on holiday anyway. So getting any money and being on holiday is a bonus for me. So I'm trying to be positive about it all. And I managed to sneak an extra YouTube show out as well, which is good because I had some time to work on that.
Yeah, I watched that. It was about like the boxes that you thought you'd lost of your old magazines that you've found some of once again. So if you just want to tell everyone your YouTube channel name, just in case there's anyone who doesn't know you have a YouTube channel, so they can all go out and check it out.
GamesAnimalTV. That's the YouTube channel, GamesAnimalTV. And basically what I do on that channel, I'm not techie. You know, I'm from the 80s and the 90s. You know, the guys who are YouTubing now are way ahead of me. You know, this to me is fantastic. You know, this is magic to me. So it's basically me just going back over the what's referred to as the golden years of gaming. You know, the early 8-bit, 16-bit years, and that I was particularly prevalent in the TV shows, the magazines. I tend to just go over old things that the new generation of gamers may not be aware of, because you know there's a whole generation of gamers out there that have never gamed without internet, and stuff that the old generation of gamers enjoy hearing again, because it brings back happy memories of their early consoles and you know the games magazines, which of course are dying out on us.
Oh, definitely. I will say, with no disrespect to my audience, most of them are from the golden age of gaming, that's for sure. And you talk about your magazines. I know a lot of the people who are in the chat are collecting the GamesMaster magazines you used to write for. I know Scott, who's not in the chat tonight because he works nights. He collects probably the PlayStation magazines you used to work for.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a bit about that. Dave, talk us about like the journalist side of things, because I remember when you first came to YouTube, you had a little bit of backlash off that first video.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, but what gets me is the people who work at Eurogamer and probably some of the people who gave you that backlash, like the other bigger YouTubers, they're probably going back and using stuff that you were either a producer of or you actually did the journalistic work for, and now they're using it to make their popcorn videos and their popcorn articles. But you were at the forefront doing that originally. So
yeah, respect where respect is due, really. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we were the guys, my generation of gamers, if you like, and professional gamers and journalists. We ploughed the field, really. You know, everybody else is now coming in on the back of the hard work that we did. You know, because we were the pioneers. Not just us, but the programmers. You know, the guys that were making all those great games. You know, sat in their bedrooms. None of it had been done before. You know, everything we did. There was no blueprint. There had been, you know, there had been no games magazines until you know 1982, and you know, and those and CMVGs, maybe something like that started coming through. You know, there'd been no magazines, so everybody was creating the format for games magazines. And then in 91, 92, when we made GamesMaster, there had been no television on video gaming, so we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, example. I went to Hewland. I took a huge pay cut to go to Hewland. I left my magazine work and went there because they approached me and offered me the job because they were setting up the country's first video games TV show. Of course, I wanted to be a part of that. What an opportunity! But it had never been done. We had no idea what we were doing. So we sat there. So early doors. The producers and the director, they're all sat there doing their producery, directory stuff, you know, all the technical stuff for the show. And I'm sat there. I've not got much to do because I'm the games expert. So I start phoning around all the companies, the PR people, and I'm arranging prizes because I'm thinking, right, we're having a show, we're having competitions, we have some great prizes. So I'm arranging holidays with Virgin, maybe. I'm arranging arcade machines. I'm arranging these great aspirational prizes for the kids. And then we put all that through, and then we didn't realize that Channel 4, you can't give children under a certain age prizes of over a certain value. We were totally naive. We had no idea at all, which is why everybody ended up getting a golden joystick, because we couldn't give prizes that had a value. So everything was new to us. But then, yeah, I put the YouTube channel out, and the thing with the YouTube channel, which I like, because you know me reasonably, and I can be a bit of a mixer in that I quite enjoy a little bit of controversy sometimes. And yeah. I put it out, and it's a retro gaming channel. Okay, it's a retro gaming channel by a guy who is pretty much Mr. Retro Gaming. You know, that was me. I mean, the fucking how I look. You know, I'm fucking 80s all over, 80s, 90s. Do you know what I mean? That's me. So anyway, I put the channel out. And I put it out with that 80s, 90s retro vibe, you know, a little bit irreverent, girls in bikinis, you know, a little bit casual, you know, nothing too sort of like YouTubery in that I'm not going, wow, oh, look, ouch, look, we're playing this crazy game. Oh, look at me, I've got a bowl of rice pudding on my head or something, all that shit. None of that. And so I put it out, and then I put it out in 480 as well, you know, and everyone has an absolute shit fit. It's like, oh my God, he's got girls on his shows in bikinis. Well, you know, in the 90s we did. Oh my God, it's in 480. Yeah, that's what we shot in the 90s. That's what video cameras were in the 90s. I've used a camera from the 90s to make this show, you know. Oh, it's not in ultra, you know, it's not in ultra HD. It's not in 4K. It's a fucking retro show. What are you not getting about a retro show?
I tell you what, Dave, I think if we could all have babes in bikinis in our videos, we would do. We're not all in the privilege. Well, you wouldn't want to see the girls that I could get in bikinis on TV. That's for sure, Dave. You know, they wouldn't be of the caliber of what you had. That's for sure.
No, I got great-looking girls who want to dance around in bikinis. You know, I'm going to say no.
Exactly. You know, Dave, I'm all for it. In fact, it's the one thing that's I think's massively lacking from your current episodes.
Yes,
I think there should be a petition to bring back the big. In fact, we do a little thing on this stream where if we want something to happen, we put a 1 in the comments at the side. So if you want the bikini babes back on Dave's next video, put a 1 in the comments, and we'll see how that goes. But I think Brilliant. It could be popular. But I
got rid of them purely because I was worried. That in this ultra PC SJW snowflake world we live in now, that I just become labeled as some kind of older guy sex pest Benny Hill type character. Do you know what I mean? I suddenly because the kind of comments I was getting from people about it, I was kind of like, this is just fun. These are just nice looking girls who are friends and who are having a laugh doing this, you know. Yet you're reading so much more into this than there actually is, you know. I didn't chain those girls in the studio and get them to do that, you know. It was just a bit of fun because we wanted that silly 80s vibe, and then we wrote the song, which was like really silly 80s 90s pop sort of song, you know. And you know, it was great though. It got us a lot of publicity, and it upset Eurogamer or whoever they were. So that was marvelous, especially when I told him they were my daughters and my wife. That totally freaked them out. Totally freaked them out. Didn't know where to go with that. That's just hilarious.
But I remember you doing that video, and in fact, I think I contacted you on Facebook after it to say that I thought it was brilliant and not to listen. Because, you know, the world has gone PC mad, and I could see that video for what it was, a bit of fun, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, man. And the people who got wound up for it, they just need to have a hard look at themselves, because it was clearly just a bit of fun. As you say, you know, they weren't forced to do that. And I thought it was a breath of fresh air. But what annoys me is the people who were on YouTube criticising you. I was thinking, Dave has done more in the gaming industry in probably a year than what you think you've done in your 5 years of YouTube, just probably copy and pasting what Dave had written. You know, that was my whole idea. I was thinking, don't scare this guy away, because this guy is a fountain of knowledge for us all. And if he carries on doing his channel like you have been doing with your magazines, you know, the guys especially who are probably watching my stream now, we love it, man, and we don't want you to stop. That is 100% sure.
I tell you the truth, I don't understand it. I don't get it. For me, right, and I had this conversation with a bunch of guys at the revival shows and everything, because I'm only doing it because guys at those shows kept coming up to me and saying they wanted me to do it. So I thought, okay, because when I left Games World in '98, season 4, halfway through the season, I'd had enough. I didn't like the way the show was going. I didn't like what was going on. There were some people involved in it that had been involved in GamesMaster when that went downhill. And I didn't like, I just thought, yeah, it's done. It's burnt out. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. My girlfriend, who is now my wife, was expecting my daughter. And I thought I could be at home preparing for my first child, or I could be here making this shitty TV show. And I don't want to. So I pulled out of it. And then in '99, when I was working for a publishing company called Rapide, they went under. I thought, right, I'm done with the games industry. It was great. End of the '80s, early '90s, mid '90s, everything was snowballing and was going great. Now it's just got a bit stale and a bit spiky, and it's probably done with a character like me. So I formed my own publishing company, and I ran a movie magazine for 7-8 years. Purely so I didn't have to write about games, so I could just play games. And then these guys convinced me to come back and to do the revival shows. And then enough people seemed to like me, which was great, because at the end of the '90s, I was getting nothing but vitriol. So I thought, well, okay, maybe the time has come. You know, everybody's into retro again. I'll come back. And so I do these shows just purely for the fun of doing it, and for the people that want, you know, a little bit of a retro walk down memory lane. I'm not trying to become a YouTube millionaire. I don't really understand what I'm doing, but I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there for the people. As soon as the people don't watch it anymore or tell me they don't want it, I'll stop doing it. You know, it's there's no big production value to it. I sit in front of a camera and I talk.
I think that's all people who watch YouTube really want. That, you know, they want that access to someone like yourself, who was a legend back in the day and still a legend now. I mean, I was at that revival event you were at, because I trade there. I know Craig Turner quite well. Craig's a good guy, and I didn't come up and say hello to you because I didn't want to be one of them guys who's like going, "Oh, hello, Dave," and all this. But I remember a real surreal moment for all us gamers was you watching the football in the bar with us all after.
Yeah.
You know, as a gamer, we all watched you on TV, and like, you know, that celebrity status, to just be sat in the bar with it just showed what a genuine and true like person you are to, like, obviously retro gaming, and that was a brilliant moment for all of us who were there. Everyone's questions in, It's from
Wicked.
my mate Jay, Flashback TNT. Does Dave any thoughts on why there are no decent video game shows these days? Well, I was going to ask you a similar sort of question. I was going to say, do you think there is a space on mainstream or subscription TV for a show like GamesMaster in the current day and age?
Absolutely, there is. Absolutely. You see, the thing is, right, when we were back in the day, right, at late 80s, early 90s, before I got the call from Hewland, Hewland are the producers of GamesMaster, okay? So the thing that I liked about gaming, and the thing that people don't grasp about gaming or talk about gaming, is I grew up in the 70s as well, okay? And in the 70s we had punk, and we were bored, you know, there was a whole generation that was bored of the music that was out there, the disco music, the Pink Floyd. I like Pink Floyd now, but at the time, Pink Floyd, the Eagles, Chicago, all these big bands, Queen, you know, we wanted something that was ours that we felt we could do. And punk came along, and punk was like a hand grenade. And the world, you know, definitely this country, because I can't talk about the world because I live in this country. But in this country, people were petrified of it. The older generation was petrified of it. The media were petrified of it. They were petrified of it because it was young people doing something passionately that they did not understand. And then the game hobby came along, and exactly the same thing. But people missed it because these were generally timid guys, nerdy guys who were sat in their bedrooms, who were, you know, self-isolating, for want of a better expression. They didn't see it in the same way as punk, but the parents didn't like it because they didn't understand it. You know, when the older generation doesn't understand what the younger generation is doing, they're anti it. So you then had this problem of getting a TV show broadcast because the people controlling the TV the TV schedules, the commissioning editors, they're the parents. They didn't understand gaming. They thought it was for nerdy, maladjusted kids who should be out kicking a ball. So so you had all that. We got the show made. The next problem was shows. If you're not on BBC, a TV show is judged by the amount of revenue it can bring in from sponsors and advertising, because, you know, that's how commercial channels, you know, pay their staff. So these people then, the people that were then running the TV channel, they didn't know who to sell advertising and sponsorship to, because gaming was for kids. That's how they saw it. So, you know, what are you going to advertise to kids? You know, you want to advertise to adults. So all of this was hard, but yet still, GamesMaster came out, Games World came out, Bad Influence came out, you know, things like Thumb Bandits and Bits and all those came out. So it suddenly became a bandwagon that got going, and it should have kept going, because now the marketing's easy. Now the people who would be watching the show, the retro people and that, they've got disposable income. They're the adults. So you'd be perfectly pitched for selling to people now. So why they don't do it, I don't know, because video gaming is, for my money, until the internet came along, the biggest youth phenomena since rock and roll. You know, rock and roll in the 50s changed how the youth acted and their lifestyles forever. But then you had punk and things like that. Yeah, but that only affected a certain group of people. You know, it wasn't really a rural thing. Once you got outside of the big cities, it didn't have such an impact. But then video games came along, and it's a cultural phenomenon. You know, and yet no one's doing a TV show on it. But then again, no one's doing a TV show on movies really either, or records. You know, there's no Word, Tube, Top of the Pops. There's no music shows either. Everything's bloody cooking. You know, so why is there not? Why are we not doing TV shows about these hugely popular hobbies and pastimes? I really don't know. There's definitely a market out there for it. Look at how every house has got 1 to 2 consoles in it now, almost certainly. You know, the audience is there waiting. Why not do it? Because YouTubing is all very well. All this is all very well, and obviously the TV companies are frightened of the internet. But this is DIY. Do you know what I mean? It's like doing this is like writing a fanzine or publishing a book. Do you know what I mean? You publish a book, you get loads of respect. You write a fanzine, people might say, oh, you know, he's a good writer. That's very good. He's very passionate. but it's not respected in the same way. Whereas if you did a TV show, it definitely would be seen as being much bigger than doing a YouTube show. Even if the YouTube show is watched by more people, there's just more of a perception of being established and being better if you're on TV.
It's got more legitimacy to it, I think.
Yes.
100% more legitimacy. I mean, anyone here who's in my comments as well, we see this as a hobby, and this is more like a video forum from like the forums back in the day where people used to chat or job of some sort. But you know, the most of us, majority of us, just see it as a hobby. But I think there's a huge space for. I know there's a channel on Sky called Jinx, but it's not really anywhere near as good as what it probably could be, and they do repeat everything on a daily. I just think there's got to be a slot somewhere with all. Oh, that is for sure. At some point, once a week.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, and why not give it a go? There's so many channels now. Why doesn't somebody give it a go? I mean, back when we did GamesMaster, there was only 4 channels, and there was only just 4 channels. You know, when Channel 4 came along, and then you had Sky and B Sky B and that in the background having their little wars, and but still only certain people had Sky. It was quite a privilege to have Sky back then. So getting on a show, getting a TV show commissioned was a big deal because you only had 4 channels outside of Sky that were doing any commissioning. Now all of a sudden, you know, you've got so many channels. It's got to be doable.
Yeah, I 100%, and I'd like to see some come back, and I think we all would definitely. And although we believe we're a small part of the community, when you go to events like Revival and the Play events, there's hundreds and hundreds of people there, and that's just the people who can attend. That's not even the people who would just sit at home and be casual watchers. So I definitely think there is. Question from Nathan's Gaming, who fittingly in his picture is wearing one of your T-shirts.
Yay!
He says, question for Dave. What was Dave's favourite time / show he presented on TV? So your favourite time being on TV and your favourite show, like, so the best time you had, the most fun, let's say.
The best time I had. Oh, I've made you go for a beer now as well, have I?
I just finished my first one. What you drinking? That's the other important question.
Guinness, always.
Fair play. I'm on cider tonight. I've been drinking lager all week, so cider for a change.
Best time on a TV show. My favourite TV show. Well, there were I had lots of good times. My best times, definitely my best. The most amazing moment I had on TV was the first time I saw GamesMaster's cameras roll. You know, because it just hadn't been done before, and we'd taken an old consecrated church, a deconsecrated church, and we'd put laser machines in there. We'd put dry ice in there. We'd built an arcade in there with playable coin ops. We had pews in there. We had a crowd in there. And the first time we turned up for business on that day and we started filming, that was a hell of a moment. You just had a feeling you were doing something special, but you had nothing to base it on, you know. But the best time I had, I think the time I enjoyed the most would have been, I always enjoyed filming Games World with Bob Mills because he was hilarious to be around. But I enjoyed probably episode 3, season 3 of GamesMaster with Dexter, when we had to move the whole season from Oxford Prison because it got recommissioned, and they took it to the London dungeons. And Hewland came to me and they said, would I co-present the whole of the second half of the series with Dexter, just me with Dexter? And that was a huge vote of confidence for me from Hewland, that they basically didn't want any of the other co-commentators. They just wanted me to do it with Dexter because they trusted me to do the challenge that we had. And that was great because it was just me. And I felt, it's not that I've got this huge ego, which I do, but it was just that it was just a huge vote of confidence. It was just me and Dexter, and it just felt great turning up every day for work, knowing, you know, you got your own dressing room space, and it was really, really nice. And, you know, I got to play FIFA with Vinnie Jones, and I sat and chat to Frank Bruno for ages. I walked in on Jet from the Gladiators when she was slipping into a latex catsuit. You know, so there was just lots and lots of wonderful, wonderful moments.
Quick question: have you got to get contact details? Because I might try and get her on next. Which set was it where you had all the audience up on different tiers? Because that reminded me of Thunderdome, you know, like Mad Max enclosed inside, and everyone was looking down upon. I love that set.
That was the old water pump station. That was season 2 of GamesMaster, and it was so stereotypical. Do you know what I mean? It just made so much sense because season 1 we'd put it in a small church, which you know you cannot underestimate how controversial that was and could have been. You know, we put the first video game show in a church. Okay, so you know there's so many connotations with that. And then the second one was put in this water pump station, and it was typical of how things go when something's a success. Like, how many movies have you seen where the first one was quite an intimate affair with the main characters, and then the second one is an absolute fucking blockbuster? You know, I'm thinking Terminator and films like that. And you know, it was just what a set that was to go for the second one. It was very Mad Max, and all the kids on all the rails, and Dominic down by the multiple dials down the front and everything. The only thing with that show for me that ruined that show for me was we had the girl who brought the golden joystick on at the end of the challenges when the kids won. She was a girl called Sarah Whisker or Sarah Tasker, one of the two. Now, she was a blonde model who was on Games World season 1. So if you want to know what I'm on about, watch some old footage of Games World season 1. Absolutely cracking. And they got her to bring the joysticks on for season 2. And they said she's going to be a diver because it's supposed to be an oil rig. I'm like, brilliant. I can see that working. You know, a little James Bondy wetsuit with a zip half undone, whatever. They put her in a full fucking diving rig with a mask on. It's like, why the fuck have you hired a model? Why don't you just get one of the runners or your best mate or something to come in and put that diving suit on? You know, it was an absolute waste. It was like having the most beautiful diamond in the world and then just painting it brown. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? I always thought that was a waste.
Yeah, definitely. I've got another quick question.
Yeah.
It's from my friend Dylan. Hypertrigger X is his channel. Question for Dave. Dominic Diamond or Dexter Fletcher, who did you get on with the best? Now, I understand your relationship with Dominic Diamond was soured after the infamous event. Have you made up from that? That's like a little bonus question for me.
Well, my relationship with Dominic soured during season 2, to be honest with you. And to this day, I still don't know why. I don't know what got his dander up. I don't know why he got upset with me. I don't know what it was. He's made a few claims that I think I was attracting too much attention, possibly, and he wasn't keen on that. He didn't like that because he was the star. But he fell out with me. Yeah, we just drifted in that one, unfortunately, because what you have to remember is when we made season 1, there were 5 of us: myself, Steve Carsey, Chris Kelly, Cameron McAllister, and Adam Wood. 5 of us. We made season 1 of GamesMaster. Now we interviewed for presenters, and Dominic was just one of the guys we interviewed. Okay, he'd had a failed interview for The Word, and they'd send us all the videos of their failed interviewees, and we invited some of them in for it. And Dominic came along. He did very well in the interview, so we gave him the gig. So me and him, along with everyone else in the crew, we'd all known each other right from the very start of our own careers, if you like. So we should have been close. But somehow season 2, something went wrong. And so it got worse and worse after that. You know, season 4, he makes faces behind my back when I'm talking, which I didn't know about. Someone told me about that afterwards. And of course, the incident, season 6. But who I like best, definitely Dexter Fletcher. Dexter Fletcher was a wonderful, wonderful guy to work with, a really giving guy. He would let me use his changing room whenever I needed to. There was no airs and graces about him. We got on great. I spoke to Dexter over Twitter just a week or so ago. So whereas Dominic I've not spoken to since I walked off the set in 1996, and I think I told him to shove it somewhere. And I think that was the end of it. We've had things have been said in interviews and that about each other, but we've never actually spoken, which for my money is dumb. Do you know what I mean? We're both older guys now. We have nothing to do with each other's lives, really. I mean, you know, you should be you should be able to let things lie, shouldn't you? Really.
100%, Dave. I had noticed that Dominic has started doing similar sort of things to yourself, like getting involved with other people on YouTube. And what I think would be great, and it's probably a challenge for Mr. Turner, and if you and Dominic could speak, I think everyone in the gaming community would one day like to see you two on a stage together at some event somewhere, and just bury the hatchet. And as you say, it's a lot of water under the bridge. You're both a bit too long in the tooth for it, and you were both integral to probably the greatest gaming show ever to be on TV. That's just my own personal opinion.
Well, I agree. I mean, for me, I mean, and people, the haters are going to hate. The people are going to say, I'm saying this for personal reasons, but when Dominic and I were on screen on GamesMaster, that was GamesMaster. Do you know what I mean? Because we were two sides of the same coin. He was the edgy guy who was the presenter, who was funny and witty and wanted to be naughty and all that sort of thing. I was the gaming guy who perhaps took gaming too seriously in his eyes a lot of the time. But I was this character as well and this ego as well, and it kind of, as a double act, we kind of worked. And obviously Patrick Moore, but I don't think he can make a comeback. But I think it'd be nice for everybody if we could do it again. Definitely.
100%. As you mentioned, Patrick Moore, someone mentioned in the comments, how on earth did Patrick Moore end up being the Games Master?
Okay, good story, right? Games Master. When we first conceived the concept for the show, the idea was, as I've said, adults didn't understand video gaming. They didn't know what was going on. The producer and the director of the show didn't understand video gaming. That was for me to explain to them. That was my role. That's why I was brought in, myself and Steve Carsey. So the idea was the Games Master couldn't be an adult. It had to be a child. So we interviewed child actors. The idea being you would have this face that appeared, but it'd be this stroppy child that would be really sort of like hoity-toity with the presenter. You have this really stroppy child who was looking down on the adult presenter for being stupid, for not knowing what the challenges were and everything. But we couldn't find a child who we believed would pull the role off with enough gravity. We didn't think anyone was quite making it work. So we were like, how else do we go around this? Somebody came up with Patrick Moore because they said he looked like a giant baby. And it's as simple as that, because we got Patrick Moore and we saw his face and we thought, yeah, he looks like a big baby. And so and of course he had that great presence and that wonderful voice. And it just worked. He had that hoity-toityness we wanted, but his face looked like a big baby. So that was why we got Patrick Moore. That was why it went there, was because we were looking for a child. And we found a grown-up we thought could pull that role off. And if you think about it, I mean, it'd be interesting to put the dates together. But how much Games Master precursored the Teletubbies and the Baby in the Sky and the Sun? Do you know what I mean? I mean, come on.
Yeah. I just know you can't imagine anyone else playing that role now other than Patrick Moore. He could never ever be replaced in my eyes. It would be too hard to do. Definitely.
It would. The one thing I've suggested over the years, and once again, it's me being me and having an ego and everything, is that if they ever brought it back, was maybe to make myself or Dominic the Games Master, i.e. in a kind of a Doctor Who transition thing. The Games Master's gone and he's replaced by a new Games Master, but the new Games Master, to ensure continuity, would be one of the guys who were the face of the old show. Do you know what I mean? So then you could have new people presenting it, so you weren't trying to have the same old people doing it again years after maybe they've gone a bit stale, but you've still got somebody from the original show,
Yeah, definitely. That is a great idea. Like you say, like almost like inheriting the role as being someone else who was part of the show. Question from my friend James O'Birdrew, who kindly sent me a T-shirt the other day. Did Big Boy Barry ever lose on Games World? Now, Big Boy Barry has started making appearances at events as well. So I don't know. I can't go back, but I always used to like the Messiah. He was my favourite.
Yeah, the Games. I've forgotten about the Games Messiah. I've forgotten about. God, who played the Games?
He was my favourite.
Yes,
there was Big Boy Barry.
Messiah, wasn't that? Oh my God, I think that might have been Doug Johns. from Virgin. I think I might have been the PR man at Virgin at the time, or Steve Carsey. It was one of the two. Anyway, I could tell you if I saw a picture of him. Barry, obviously Alex Ferry, he runs his own PR company now called Little Big PR, who's doing very well, I believe. Now, did he ever lose on Games World? I don't know, because I only ever presented the Eliminators. The Eliminators were when the kids came on to play each other, to go on to play the Videators on the Friday, and I never did the Friday show, so I didn't see all the Friday shows. I would imagine he'd have lost at some point, but everybody loses at some point. But I don't know if they lost on the show or not, because he was very much the figurehead of the show, to the point that he even had his own show within the show, didn't he? So he was a big character, and of course he was on season 1 of GamesMaster. He was one of the first competitors. He did a Sonic Speed Challenge as Alex Very, and on that day he failed the speed challenge, and so they gave him a second go because they wanted to see him do it, because whenever he'd practiced it or done it for us in the studios, in the offices, he'd always nailed it. But I think nerves got to him on the day. He's only a young lad, and they gave him a second chance, and he nailed it. So that was the only time I've seen him lose on a stage. But it was never filmed. But I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing him lose. I mean, I played against him. We did on Games World season 1. They asked me to be a presenter on season 1 of Games World, and I said no, because they wanted me to present with 2 other guys, and I wanted my own presenting slot. So I said no. So they did a Games World Magazine Champions Challenge. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. So I went on and I played the magazine champions from all the leading magazines. You know, I think maybe Mean Machines, GamesMaster, magazines like that sent their champions along. So I played against all of them and beat them all. And I did that just to show Games World what they'd missed by not giving me my own slot. And what I hadn't realized was, because of the way Games World worked on season 1, if you won in the Eliminator, you went on to play the Videators on the Friday. And because we were professional gamers, one of us had to go on to play the Videators on the Friday. Otherwise, they had no one to play them. And I didn't realize that. I wasn't up for that. I just wanted to beat the pro gamers. So I agreed to go along on the Friday. So I went along on the Friday. And if you win, you get onto a champions leaderboard, which would be more problems for me, because I didn't want to be competing on Games World. I just wanted to go on and beat the guys. So anyway, the Videators came on, and we had Master Moriarty came on first. Now the Videators used to just specialize in 2 or 3 games. They only ever played 2 or 3 games, and they practiced those games solidly. Okay, so I went on there, and Master Moriarty's thing was the ring section in Sonic 2 it was in like 3D, and you ran along. Now, if you're playing Sonic 2, you charge through that section to get onto the rest of the game. You don't go back and practice and practice and practice. So I knew he'd be shit hot on that. So I bet low, and he beat me on that one by a few rings. Then I had Barry come on to play me on Street Fighter. Now, I was an arcade Street Fighter man and a Sega journalist. Nintendo's always been my Achilles heel. He chose to play it on Nintendo. So I chose Guile, whereas normally I'd be Ken or Ryu, because but I thought no way I was pulling off some of their moves on the joypad when I was used to using a stick. So I went with Guile because his moves were easier, more backwards and forwards. I lost to Barry, but that was okay because I bet really low on that one as well. And I saved it all for the last one, which I knew was on a Neo Geo CD. So I was back on the arcade stick, and I bet everything on that. And then I got onto the Champions leaderboard. But yes, he's very good player, Alex. Very, very good player, and very knowledgeable. And yeah, he's doing a lot of stuff. I get the feeling he wants to be back on screen. He's got that kind of actor soul about him. I think he likes to be in the limelight.
Yeah, he was hosting a panel at one of the last gaming events last year, Blackpool, I believe, and that had been the first time I'd seen him at an event in a long time. But it's great to see people like yourself, Big Boy Barry, people who are massively part of the gaming scene in our childhoods, 100%. And it's always great to see you at events. I've had another couple of questions. Scott Sega Zombie, he asked Sega or Nintendo, but he also asked earlier 16-bit era, especially Mega Drive or SNES. So which is your favorite?
It's a strange one. Sega definitely was my favorite at the time. Now I'm quite enjoying the SNES, but I think that's because I didn't play it much in those days. So But definitely it was Mega Drive at the time. Absolutely.
Awesome. So we haven't asked you any of the traditional questions we normally ask on the screen, so we'll get into one. Just tell us about gaming growing up for you then, Dave, because obviously it became a huge part of your life, and I kind of get the impression once it became your job, you wanted a break from it because you stopped enjoying the games. Would that be correct? So just your whole gaming journey, really, up until it became your job, sort of thing.
Okay, are you sitting comfortably?
Yeah, man,
Okay.
we've got plenty of beer here. We're good. They're all here to hear you, mate. I'm just the vessel.
Well, obviously I started, the earliest memories I have of video gaming are probably playing an old Binatone machine that my parents bought from Woolworths, which was the old Pong tennis game. And it was a brown machine. It had like a very early version of Duck Hunt with the gun where you shot the pixelated ball on the screen and everything. I remember playing that. Going to computer club at school, you'd spend weeks and weeks, one night a week going in there, learning to program so that you could get your name to come up on the screen. We had, me and my friends, we had Speckies and C64s, and then playing ice hockey at the local rink. I remember the first day I walked past a huge black box that was going boom, 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 boom. Space Invaders, first Space Invader machine. So that was me hooked on the arcade side of it, but didn't have much money. So you could only play so much, because the arcade machines were expensive for kids. So coming up through anyway, I went off to art school and I was writing for various magazines, freelancing. And then I bought myself an Amiga 500 because I'd been told that it had the best desktop publishing software on it. And at the time, the Macintosh SE had just come out and everyone was trying to learn how to use those machines. We saw that desktop publishing was going to be the future of design because that's my background, is art and design. So I bought an Amiga 500 and it was shite for desktop publishing, absolutely terrible, but great games. So I carried on gaming on it. And gaming at that point then hooked me. In those days, there was no internet. So if you wanted to get the latest games and you wanted to get them for a good price, you either had to rely on one of the local shops having them in, and they didn't always, not quickly, not when you live out in somewhere like Torquay, like me down on the seaside. So you would join mail order clubs. And mail order clubs, you would then get your software for a couple of quid cheaper than normal, and they'd mail it to you. And you'd get catalogs and magazines from the mail order clubs. And I would get those magazines, and I'd read them, and I'd think, I could do this better. So at the time, I was traveling around Britain in an old bus with the circus and with carnival people, and we were staying on site and producing their signs and business cards and things. I was designing them in the bus. I had a big Rottweiler called Layla that used to keep me safe with all the money. And we went past London, and I said to my boss, do you mind if I get off the bus? I said, I've got a job interview. I want to go interview for this magazine. So I got off the bus, went along, became deputy editor at Special Reserve, which was the mail order club of Intermediates. Intermediates were Europe's biggest mail order company at the time. So I started writing all their magazines. Within a year, I became their publishing editor and publishing manager. And that was when I heard from Hewland that they were putting together GamesMaster. My name has been put forward by a number of the PR companies that I spoke to on a regular basis for the magazines. And I went and saw them, started up GamesMaster. And then from GamesMaster, then after I had, see, in television, you don't get employed as such, you get a contract. And the GamesMaster contract came to an end. Jane wanted me to stay on and do some more TV stuff, but I was missing magazines. So I would join Paragon. I went back and did Sega Pro with them and stayed with Paragon for 5 years, still doing the TV game shows, Games World and GamesMaster and everything. But by this time, I'd created the Games Animal persona, the character. It came about because I was pretty much unbeatable on NHL 93, the old ice hockey game. And we used to play that in the breaks a lot. And we played a lot of rap in the studio, in the magazine studios. And we used to like Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet. And on the track, Bring Some Noise, Chuck D says, once again, back it's the incredible Rhyme Animal, the incredible D. And I used to shout when I wanted to play NHL 3, back again, it's the incredible Games Animal, the unstoppable me. And so everyone then started calling me the Unstoppable Games Animal, which then became my moniker. And then I had this idea. You see, I always felt that gaming would never be treated with the same respect as the movie and the music industry, because there were no personas, there were no public stars, celebrities, if you like, within the games industry. They were the programmers who were making a lot of money, and within our world, they were celebrities. They were big personalities. You know, we wanted to meet Peter Molyneux, we wanted to meet Mike Montgomery at the Bitmap Brothers, people like that. We wanted to meet them because we were in awe of them because they created our games. But the general public didn't know they existed. So when a story would come out about gaming, because gaming was becoming a big thing, the TV companies, the TV producers, the magazine editors, they had no one to go to because they can't interview Sonic, they can't interview Mario, they can't interview Lara Croft. These people aren't real. So I thought you had to have some bigger than life personalities within the gaming industry that the media people could go to, that would then bring the gaming out of the bedrooms and into the high street. And that was the idea of the Games Animal. I started traveling all over the country, opening shops, playing in challenges, promoting games, doing the TV shows, because I wanted to become a big name. I wanted to become a go-to guy for the media world. And my thinking was that everyone would follow me and we'd all have a great time. And no one did. Everyone just got quite offended by me and didn't like my arrogance, and tried to do everything they could to stop me, really, which is a shame, you know, because things were starting to happen. You know, I was getting huge articles written about me in the newspapers. The Daily Mirror flew me up to have photo sessions with the Man United squad. Company magazine voted me one of the 50 most eligible bachelors. It was all going on, and I was taking it to the next level. And now I look at it all those years later, 20 odd years later, and we're in exactly the same spot. We're still underground. You know, you got the BAFTAs, you got the Brit Awards, you got the, you know, all the music, the pop stars and the movie stars. They're all doing great. Yet the games industry is worth more. You know, a big selling game makes more than most movies make, and yet there's no celebrities. There's no big awards dinners because we've not taken it overground, because nobody saw the potential in being that guy. You know, and it was a shame for me, because I wasn't just doing it for me. I was hoping I'd get rich out of it. Of course I was. But I was hoping a whole bunch of us would do it as well, and that other people would see the potential, and eventually better and bolder and wittier people than me would come along. And gaming would be, you know, a professional games player would be like a rap star, would be like a footballer, you know, would be revered and would be in the papers and would be on the reality shows, you know. That'd be great. Why not? Why not? It's just as big an industry.
Do you think your biggest problem is like you needed your adversary to be against you, needed an ultra good guy to be doing the exact opposite to what you were?
Yes,
you know what I mean? Build up like a rivalry between the two here, like you're either in Dave's camp or you're in this other guy's camp. But definitely with gaming, it should be classed as an art form alongside movies. Because don't get me wrong, a movie nowadays probably lasts 2.5 hours. A game can be 90 plus hours now, if not more. And it's just as, if not more, in detailed art form than the movies. But as a game, you say it's always frowned upon as like a nerdy hobby. I mean, I'd like to class myself as far as from being a nerd, and there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. But, you know, I used to go out and kick football, same as everyone else. It's just I love games as well. And I think you're right in a way. Probably trying to do it on your own was probably where it didn't go off. There needed to be more than just you.
Yeah, I agree completely. The problem is, and people used to say to me, they used to say, okay, yeah, but why you? Why do you think you should get all this? Why are you in the Daily Mirror? Why are you in the Independent? Why are you in Company Magazine? Why are you in Bazaar Magazine? Why are you in whatever magazine was covering me or was interested in me at the time? You don't make the games. You don't make the games. The stars in gaming, the real people in gaming are the programmers. Why are you? My argument used to be, who makes the Formula One racing cars? You see what? So no. The McLaren car now, say, or the Mercedes car now. Who is the chief engineer? Who designed that engine? Who designs the spoilers on that car? Who put that car together? Who designed it? I don't know. Who drives it? Lewis Hamilton. That's the games industry for you. No one cares about who builds the car. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, programmers, but they don't. Only other programmers and people within the industry care about it. The general public, they want the driver. And what I was representing was a driver. If you in the games industry, until you have public personalities who capture the public's imagination, all you've got basically is Formula One with no drivers. A bunch of cars lined in a line together in the pit, and the press want to talk to one of them, but none of them can talk back. You need the drivers. It's the drivers people are interested in, not the creators of the cars.
I think that's 100% nail on the head. Like, you know, a programmer can create a game. It doesn't make them good at playing it. You're the person who mastered their game that they created. And like you say, you know, Formula One's nothing without the person who can drive the car. No matter who designed it, you've got to have that ability to handle it and be able to, in your case, to be able to play the game as well. So yeah, that is a great comparison. But as I say, I think probably the biggest problem was you were trying to push that schedule on your own. If there'd been a group of you, then maybe. I mean, I know esport is a big thing now, and if you're into that, you can go and look up there, and they're very much like what probably you want to be, but they all seem to lack fucking personality. They're just sat there playing the game, you know. They've not got a lot behind. Where I think probably looking at it, that was probably Dominic's. He was probably worried you were going to eventually outshine him, which you probably did, and he probably saw that coming. Maybe, I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
That's
because when I think of Games World and Games Master, okay, Dominic used to wear the loud suits, but I always remember you in your bandana and your jacket and just your whole. You had a presence on screen, which is what you were paid to do. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but you know, I made that for myself, and I think yeah, you're probably right. I think that is probably right. And what I would have liked to have seen happen, and what I was game for happening, of course, was that me and him would work together, you know, like Bob and Vic or something. Do you know what I mean? You have great double acts through the years, you know, just include me rather than try to push me off the show, you know, which was just madness. It was just making things safer, I suppose, you know. I don't know. I don't want to get into all that really these days.
No problem. I've got a question from Craig Turner. I'm sure he can email and ask himself. He says, will Dave come back to the next revival if Boris takes the locks off? Could he even tattoo there?
I don't know. I'm always game for doing everything, but there's got to be a reason for it. You see, I said this to Craig the first time when he approached me about coming to do Revival in 2017. At that time, I had done nothing in the games industry since 1999. And I'd said I wouldn't until my daughter was 18. I wanted to raise my daughter before I even thought about TV or video games again. So I turned my back on it all. And then Craig came at just the right time. And Craig's a clever guy. And somewhere down the line, in some interview, he'd read that I really wanted my own Mortal Kombat 2 machine. Always had wanted my own Mortal Kombat 2 cabinet, because that was the game I used to play most in the 90s. And so he promised me my own Mortal Kombat 2 machine. So that was a given. So I came back and did the show, his show, out of curiosity. And it was brilliant. And I was well received. And I was one of the keynote speakers. And then I stayed in the afternoon and did a challenge on stage and everything, just purely because I felt like doing it. And I felt the vibe was right. And the crowd seemed to love it. And so that was good. But I said to him at the time, what I would be concerned with being is the Alan Partridge of gaming. I don't want to be that guy that just suddenly keeps turning up at video games conventions and wanders around and kind of people are like, oh, he's here again looking for a bit of attention. You know, I don't want to be that guy. If there was a reason for me to be there, I'd possibly do it, because I love doing different things and unusual things. But I don't want to be the guy that just looks like he's just trying to live off what some kind of attention that he had 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing for me. I don't want to be that guy that looks like he's just trying to live off the past.
You know what? I totally respect you for that opinion, because there are some people who are happy to be wheeled out at the opening of a packet of crisps. What I would say is 2017 was 3 years ago, and if we've not seen you at one since 2017, I think we're due one. One every 4 or 5 years, it'd be good, Dave, just to find out what you're doing. And, you know, what I will say is there's always new people getting back into gaming, so there's always new people wanting to listen and hear to your stories. That's for sure. And we definitely don't think of you as that guy that turns up for everything. That is for sure.
That's good. What I've always thought I'd like to, what might be some mileage in doing, I'd like to do, if anybody ever wanted to arrange it, is possibly one of these things you used to see a lot on the telly, an evening with Dave Perry, in that we a venue somewhere, bunch of seats, 100, 200 people, whatever, tickets only. I plot myself in the middle. We play some videos of the old TV shows and everything, and just a to and fro with the audience, and I can tell stories and I can fill in some gaps for them on what went on in the industry back then and everything. That would be quite nice, just a bunch of interested people and a no holds barred chat. They can ask me what they want and I can tell them what I want.
I think that would be quite good. And Retro Revival Events, aka Craig Turner, you're watching and listening, so make it happen.
Lots of beer.
Yeah, lots of beer. I've got a quick question from Retro1. Nathan, he's a good friend of mine. Question for Dave: worst game you've ever played and reviewed? I'm guessing it might have been Mario N64.
No, Mario 64 is the game I've ever played. It's the game I've played worst, as opposed to worst game. Can't deny Mario 64, groundbreaking game. It did a lot for the platform genre, taking it into 3D, etc. It's just that it's not a game that I would ever play. I just don't enjoy that kind of game, specifically not that one. No, I can't remember. I mean, there have been some shockers, and thankfully, you tend to forget the shockers. There have been some awful ones. I can't remember. I'm sure there were some that I've given, 10s, 5s to, because they've just been, percents, because they've been so bad over the years. The one that stands to mind as being the most disappointing was Rise of the Robots, game from Mirage, and I think it was Bell Coin Ops, and it just looked great, and I so wanted it to be good, and I went all the way up to Nottingham, and I met with Mirage up there, and I met with the chap Colin, I think he was called. I'm not sure. I may have just got that name wrong. I think I'm thinking of Colin Bell of Derby County. But I went up there, and he was lovely, and he showed me around his coin-op factory, shop, studio, whatever you call it up there. And he showed me the early versions of the coin-op being put together, and he left me alone to play it. And I think I beat the game in about 30 minutes. And I was kind of like, huh. And then it came out on the consoles, and it was just as bad. It was just really, it was a very, very poor beat 'em up. I remember that one being the one that I was most disappointed with. I mean, there've been some shocking games.
That one is a personal non-favorite of mine, because when I first started YouTube about 4 years ago, there's a thing called video response where people ask you to do something, and it was pick 3 random games. So I closed my eyes, picked off my shelf 3 games. One of them was my copy of Rise of the Robots on the SNES. Oh man, you could literally just pin the opposition in the corner and just keep kicking it. It was no fun at all. No. Fucking terrible game. They obviously put all the effort in trying to make it look visually good, but gave absolutely zero gameplay.
Lovely. I mean, the reflections on the metal and everything were absolutely superb. The sparks that were flying, it was lovely. But the game itself was really, really poor.
Yeah, definitely. I've got another question. We've got plenty of questions for you tonight. A question from the Retro Bear, my friend Russ. Question for Dave. What does he think of gaming today? So I'm guessing that's like, what do you think of modern games and just the state of the games industry? I mean, obviously it's flourishing, but is the quality of stuff and the steps as good as what it was back in the day? Because I think some of us look back with rose-tinted glasses, but I love the retro stuff.
We do look back with rose-tinted glasses. I mean, when I went to Revival in 2018, it was, because I did go the year after 2018, and I got it in my head I wanted a PlayStation again. I hadn't had a PlayStation for years, so I bought a PlayStation, and I wanted to play Wipeout, and I wanted to play the original Ridge Racer, because I love those 2 games. I got them home, and the TV I had didn't help, because the frame update wasn't with the PlayStation anymore, and everything looked really pixelated and blocky, and it just wasn't as good as I remembered. And a lot of the old games I've gone back to aren't as good as I remembered. I have to be honest. But modern games. I said this the other day. I sat downstairs playing God of War on PS4 with my my daughter's boyfriend during lockdown, and I said the trouble with modern games now, and there's been a few of them. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I've been playing. God of War, Red Dead Redemption a little bit. Some of the I can't think of any others. What's Skyrim, things like that. These games, huge games, but you watch them, you don't play them. You know, so many of these games, they look so nice, and you're sat waiting for all this, you know, for the story to stop being told, or for some special creature to appear and tell you all about this master. And you just sat there, and it's just like, my God, it's been 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I've not had to interact with the controller at all. You watch the games; they're getting very samey.
I'm just going to put in there and say,
franchises.
I'm just going to put in and say, I have not paid Dave to say that, because that is something I say all the time.
Oh.
I think games now currently, they hold your hand too much, hold your hand how to play the game too much. I mean, I remember games back in the day, like if you had to time a jump, you had to be pixel perfect to get it right. Whereas now they hold your hands. There's a lot of allowance. And as you say, I mean, everyone loves the game Last of Us, except for me, because I played the first 40 minutes to an hour, and I felt I spent more time being told what button to press and then watching a cutscene. And I just thought, you know what? I can't be bothered. I want to get into the game and learn the game myself. You know, I've played games long enough to learn them. So that is certainly how I feel.
I agree. You end up watching the games for ages. There's a lot of inactivity because you're supposed to be enjoying the environment you're in. And then the biggest bugbearer for me, and I will never give up on this, is that when we used to buy games in the 90s and the 80s, when we used to buy games, you paid your 40 quid, your 30 quid, whatever you were buying, and you owned the game. You owned the game. You took the game home, you played it whenever you wanted to, you owned the game. Now, we put God of War in the other day. Sorry, I'm going on about God of War. That's the one I've been playing just recently. And, you know, hour and a half for it to download, to update the PS4, and then for it to install what it had downloaded. And oh my God, I remember buying Half-Life 2 years ago for the PC. And this is when I knew I was done with those kind of games. And I got it home and I was ever so excited about playing Half-Life 2. And I put it in, and you had to log into Steam. And I didn't have a Steam login. Steam was a fairly new thing. So I logged into Steam, and then it was like, oh, there will be a download slot available for you in 4 hours or something. And you're like, what the fuck? I've just paid 30 odd quid for this game and I can't play it. And so many of these games are like it now. And I watch these kids playing FIFA, and I tell you what, they're fucking mugs. They really are, because, I mean, the money that FIFA is taking off you now. FIFA, you used to buy it, you put it in your console, and you played it. Now your credit card is linked to it. What the hell is that all about? I mean, years ago, over in America, the other David Perry, who used to be Shiny, don't know what he does now, programmer basically, you know, Earthworm Jim and all that. He said to me, in the future, he said, games are going to be given away for free. And I, what are you on about? How are you going to do that? How's that ever going to work as a business model? And he was absolutely right. And that's what's happened. And it goes against everything, because the Nintendo's marketing strategy, which was always admired in the 80s and 90s, was razors and razor blades. That was how they described it: razors and razor blades. Because razor companies will sell you the razor for £2.95 with 2 free blades. Then when you go and buy the blades to replace to use the blades on the razor, because your blades have got blunt, the new blades are like a tenner for 4 blades or something. So they've got you because they've sold you the razor cheap. And the consoles have gone against that now, because the consoles are 500 quid, 400 quid each, whereas they used to be cheap to get you to buy the software. But I guess the software is doing that, because you're buying FIFA for 40 odd quid. But if you're a serious FIFA player, FIFA's probably costing you more, £1,000 to £2,000. But they daren't put that on the price. But it is, you know, you buy FIFA for 40 odd quid, and you link your credit card to it, and you buy your player cards, and you do your career mode and all this. And if you want to be a serious player, you generally have to do those things. You know, the real price of some of these games today is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And it just winds me up. If you pay your money, you should own the game, I think.
I do agree with you. Like some games have downloadable content that you have to pay for, like extra levels and stuff like that, expansions, and as you say, it's all hidden costs from when you first purchase the game. I mean, obviously with FIFA, you've got the choice to not purchase the stuff, but I think it's geared towards younger kids to be pestering their parents for extra money to buy FIFA packs and stuff like that. You know,
look at Fortnite and games like that. You know, they're all it's all just they've got you by a financial umbilical cord. They have once they get you playing, they're just draining you because they used to. You see, what it was and what people must never lose sight of the value of power, of having the power. Now, in the early days, we had the power because the companies produced a game. They marketed it. They went to the magazines. They went to the TV shows, whatever. They showed us the game, convinced us this was a great game, put some slick artwork on it. Okay, released it. Okay, May the 1st, the game comes out. We go down the shops, we buy the game. Yeah, $29.99, $35.99, whatever. Bang, got it. Okay, it was a lot of our pocket money, but it was worth it. We've got the game. We take the game home, we play it. They haven't got us anymore. We've got the power. Now, we can decide whether to buy the sequel when it comes out or whether to buy the merchandise, but we've got the game. We've got the power. Now, they've taken the power off the games players. The games players have allowed them to have the power because you've paid for the initial software, but they've still got you financially because you're still buying things within the game. They've got your credit card details. You have to go on. You have to log on to Live or whatever to do it, or some Wi-Fi service to download the extra software you need to play your game. They've got hold of you, and in the real world, that's happening as well because less and less places are taking cash. All these kids that are going into bars and paying with cards now, swiping them. I watch them doing it. It's exactly the same as the games industry because the governments and the banks will then control you because whilst you've got cash, they can't see everything you're doing. You have power. When everything's paid for with a card, they can see exactly what your spending habits are and exactly what you're earning. And they're doing the same thing as the gaming industry. And it's all about taking power off the individuals. And the gaming industry has done it very, very well.
I totally agree with that, especially with the old credit. You know, my search history, like, you know, if I look something up just randomly on Google, next thing I know, I've got an ad to buy it on Facebook as I'm scrolling through.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, it's frightening.
Have you had it where if you've talked about something?
Yes, I was just about to say that. Like, I'll be randomly having a conversation with something. I'll be randomly having my phone in my pocket, talking to someone, and about, I don't know, not even a day later, you're scrolling through your phone and there's some sort of advert loosely linked with something you was talking about earlier. Crazy. I've got a few questions for you, Dave. First from my friend Marcus, X-Files 2708. What's the 2708 about Marcus? Get rid of that. Question for Dave.
Yeah.
Maybe. Question for Dave. Most underrated game console that Dave had a soft spot for. So, you know, underrated system that, you know, you wished it done better than what it did at its time, I'm guessing.
Okay. Small one. The PSP. Love the PSP. For my money, the best handheld that ever came out. And the fact that it had a bunch of original software written for it, instead of just a bunch of ports from its larger, 16-bit and 32-bit cousins. Yes, the PSP I think was a way better machine than it got credit for. On the console front, let me have a quick scan through my mind. People always want you to say Dreamcast, but I didn't rate the Dreamcast. Or they want you to say Nintendo GameCube, but I wasn't fussed about the GameCube either. I quite liked the 3DO. Some of the games on the 3DO. There was a game on 3DO called, it was what are they called? Space Marines. Space Marines on 3DO is an incredible game. And for years, I kept my 3DO just to play that one game. I didn't play anything else on it. I kept it for that one game. Absolutely wonderful game. Yeah, no, I thought the 3DO, I'd like to have seen that do a bit better than it did. It felt like a grown-up machine. But the PSP, when it first came out, and it was hackable. And so you had all this homebrew software being made for it, and people were working out how to change the desktops and to do different things with it. And of course, you could watch movies through it, etc. It was an incredible machine, but unfortunately, Sony didn't like the lack of control. Going back to control, so they stopped it being hackable by putting more and more updates. You know, you bought the latest game, you wanted to play it, you had to download the update. The update got rid of some of the gateways into the machine, and eventually it became a bit of a brick, but still a really, really good games machine. And I still hang on to them. When I sold all my machine collection about 5 years ago, I didn't sell my PSP. I kept that one.
I know if my best mate Liam's watching this, he will love that, because he's a big collector of the PSP, and I always joke with him, no one's collecting PSP. Why are you collecting PSP? It's like a running joke. So if he watches that back, he'll love that comment. I've got a few questions, Dave, so don't rush your answers. I'll just go through them.
Sure.
From Cooper's World, question for Dave: if he could forget a gaming experience and forget a game to experience it again for the first time, what would it be? So I'm guessing, like, which game did you pick up and think, wow, you'd like to have that moment again, sort of thing?
The first time I played a game and it blew me away, my first gaming experience would probably be, wow, that's such a good question. Such a good question. So many games. So many games. I had one and it's gone. Game I loved Gods from the Bitmap Brothers. That's one of the few platformers I absolutely played all the way through, and I loved playing that game. So maybe I would like to play that one again. I feel like I should have more of a wow game than that, and there probably are some. I just can't think of them at the moment. But it's a great question.
No worries. If you think later, we can always come back to it.
Yeah.
From my good mate Rob, Gernaldinho plays. Question for Dave: Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, or King of Fighters? So I'm guessing, which one's your favourite?
Street Fighter all day long.
I thought you would say that.
Street Fighter all day long. Never Tekken. Never Tekken, not even close. King of Fighters maybe because it was very Street Fighter-y. I like the crazy Japaneseness of it. Mortal Kombat was my game. Was a game I used to play in a lot of competitions on. It was a game I used to play all over the country in. But Street Fighter for me is the purest of all the beat 'em ups, because what Street Fighter does that nearly all the modern beat 'em ups now that come out, or the sequels to the Tekkens and the Killer Instincts and all these other games that are out that came out after it. And what Street Fighter does is it allows the human to remain an integral part of the game. In the moves in Street Fighter, you have just enough moves for it to be tactical, and the rest of it is about how the human applies those moves, when he applies those moves. And the human element is massive in Street Fighter. You get into some of the later games like Tekken or Killer Instinct and that, and there's so many button sequences to chain together, and you're taking the human out because you're remembering things, whereas you should just be thinking about fighting the guy on the screen, like in a normal fight. In a real fight, you wouldn't be thinking about how many, what you had to do to get a fireball to come off and whatever. It would be instant. And with Street Fighter, it keeps things really instant. I like Street Fighter. It's about the two guys fighting, not the computer.
That is a quality answer. I've got a couple more questions, Dave. One's from my friend Cinny Steve. Question for Dave. What is your biggest regret selling? Now, I don't know if he means your collection or if you sold off some of the stuff that you had from TV. Yeah. So maybe a joint question, if you've sold something that you had, like, which was a memory from TV, and also some of your own personal gaming collection. So biggest regret.
What happened was, as I mentioned on the YouTube channel, I sold a lot of my stuff when I moved house 5 years ago, because after 16 years of living in the same house, I built up a lot of stuff. I decided it was time to move on. I thought I was done with the games industry until Craig persuaded me to come back to Revival that once. I sold a lot of very unusual stuff. I'd gone to Sony's plant in Austria, and I'd taken part in a competition, and I'd won a disc that I think was the 10,000th pressing of Tekken, or the 1,000th pressing of Tekken 2 or whatever. I can't remember now, but it was a completely black disc, and it was just specially engraved on it that it was this commemorative disc. It was like the 10,000th disc or whatever to come off the plant or whatever. It was a special disc, and no one else had it in the world, and I'd won it in a competition, and I sold that. I had, of course, I had a golden joystick that I was given on GamesMaster when we finished season 1. The production crew gave me my own golden joystick to say thank you for my contribution to the show. I was the only person on the production team to be given a golden joystick. On season 1 of Games World, when I beat all the professional games players from the magazines, I won an Eliminator jacket. I sold that. But I don't regret any of those sales because I know they went to collectors who will look after them better than me. The one thing I regret selling out of everything I sold is my Amiga 500, because to this day, my favorite gaming format, and that Amiga was with me from the 80s through the 90s. That was the machine that took me from traveling in a bus around the country to setting up the UK's first game show. It never broke down. I had the upgrade you put in the bottom, the 500k upgrade to take it up to a megabyte, and definitely most of my favorite games of all time were on that machine. And I regret selling that machine. I regret selling the 2 Competition Pro joysticks that I used to play with, that I had with it, because they're the best joysticks known to man. And I had an arcade power stick, a Sega arcade power stick that I used on the Sega a lot. I sold that as well. So those would be the 4 items I regret selling, but always the Amiga 500. Should never have sold that.
Awesome answer. Quick question from my friend Sean Horatio Van Basten, who's not from Holland, although I did think he was for several years. Has Dave ever dabbled in import games? If so, what's your favourite import games and systems? So, you know, back in the day, were you into like the import, like Mega Drives and stuff like that?
Well, back in the early days, when I was at Paragon, we basically, like I said, there was no internet. So you had to get your information, your games information for the magazines, for the readers, any way you could. It wasn't as easy as going online and looking for it like it is now. You know, we would hear that maybe there was some game called Go Go Jim Bob or something, you know, and it was amazing. So then we'd have to find out. So we'd have to find out who the publishers were. We'd talk to them. They perhaps wouldn't know. They wouldn't tell us. So you would have local import shops, which you don't see much anymore, unfortunately. I think Computer Exchange was originally one of those. You would go to your local import shop, and they would have all the latest games. They would have magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly and Die Hard Game Fan, which were the American and the Japanese magazines. And the Japanese ones you couldn't understand, but you'd have the screenshots. So you could scan the screenshots to put them in the magazine and the news to make it look like you knew more than you knew. And you'd get all the latest games as well. And of course, you'd have to buy the machines, things like the PC Engine and the Super Famicom, and of course the Genesis, because they weren't called their UK names then. But then you would have to buy special adapters that you'd put the carts in, and you'd put those into the machine. So you know, we used to have to do all that to keep up with the gaming scene for the magazines, and to keep up with the other magazines that were out there, because usually Japan would get the games first, and then of course you'd have things whereby maybe the Japanese SNES would run faster than the UK SNES and things like that. So it'd be like if you're playing a game on one, it's not as good as playing it on the other system because that one's running at a faster screen rate. And it was very, very complicated back then. So, but yes, we used to do it. I didn't personally get that involved in it because I was working on magazines, and we'd buy all the equipment for the magazines, so we'd have it in house anyway. I would generally wait for the official systems to come out. Purely because I always felt a certain responsibility to the UK market to do that.
Nice one. Quick question from myself. So when you were reviewing games and obviously doing stuff on the magazine, what was like your standard protocol for reviewing a game? Like, you know, obviously you wanted to get to hear about it first, so you were looking at Japan. So you know, how would that whole process be put together? Would you just like say, if you were reviewing a game, was it just your opinion, or would it be like a group collective to get the best outcome for that review sort of thing?
Well, quite often, if you were doing the process, obviously the process would be rumors. You'd have rumors first, which you'd put on your news page. Then when you got something more solid, you'd have a news thing on it. Then as soon as you could get hold of some software, or at least some shots on a disc from somebody, then it would be a preview. And then a review would actually be, you know, you wouldn't review until you actually were playing the game. Now, in the early days, you used to have, you know, an individual reviewer would do the review. But later on, you'd find most magazines would have a review crew, a review team, and you'd have 2 or 3 reviews on the page. You'd have the main reviewer, then you'd have a couple of boxes with other people's scores on as well. So always it was important to have a listen to what everybody else thought, because you just might not like a certain franchise, but other people might see some merit in it and they might change your mind. But generally, if your name was on the bottom of the review, it was your opinion. But it was hard to review because people wanted you to be brutally honest, and you felt a responsibility to be brutally honest because people were making purchasing decisions with their hard-earned money based on your words. But at the same time, if you gave anything a 50 or a 60, it was considered shite, and you'd have the PR companies phoning up your bosses and pulling the advertising on the magazine and all that kind of thing, which would have financial implications. So you have to justify it, which always bothered me, because 50% should be an average game. If it's out of 100, 50 should be average. But really, I always say be wary of the 80 to 82% games, because those are the games that no one's making their mind up over. An 80 to 82% game is a cop-out review always. What does it tell you? Do I buy the game or don't I buy the game? 82%, what does that mean?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you know, were your arms ever twisted to improve reviews on certain games? And obviously you've kind of said that there, if they were going to pull advertising and stuff like that.
Well, you do, and sometimes you would do exclusive deals with people. Say there was a big game and you knew it was going to sell an extra 10,000 copies of your magazine if you got it first. A company was not going to give you that game unless they had some guarantee that that game was going to be looked after. Do you know what I mean? So although you wouldn't sell the readership out, you know, you would make sure that the games you were putting on the front cover were games that were generally going to be good. You know, you wouldn't go for, you never saw a magazine go for the sensationalist angle of putting a game on the front cover just so it could slate it inside. You know what I mean? If it was on the front cover, it was always a good game. So there was always a bit of to-in and fro-in. You had to persuade the PR companies that you were going to look after their games. And of course, if they had a game and they knew it was an average game, they still want a good score for it. So there was always a to-in and fro-in where you'd in the marketing and PR and the softcos, you know, they would want to be, you'd have this, like, some of them you would be friends with, some of them you'd get on well with, some of them there's this kind of professional friendship where, you know, they're trying to make it hard for you to give them a bad score. And that's just PR, that's the game.
No worries. That was just my own personal view, like, sort of thing. Question from Retro Kit. Question for Dave: if he could keep one, ever been, so Sega, Nintendo, Commodore, etc., etc. So you could only keep one.
I didn't see them. What were they? Sega and Nintendo and
there's Commodore, and there's literally anyone who's ever made a console, whether they're currently going or if they're bankrupt. Which would be the one company you would keep?
Sony PlayStation.
PlayStation. So Sony, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed the Mega Drive era. It brought games on lot. Commodore is my favorite system. I enjoy playing them, and I'm gonna get another Commodore very, very soon because that was my absolute favorite system. I loved it. But the Sony PlayStation era was leaps and bounds. Just great software on there. The systems have struggled to keep up with afterwards. I mean, it was just some great games.
Awesome. Again, I've not paid Dave to say that, but there's a saying that I say. I remember when I first got my first PlayStation 1, I put my demo disc in, and you controlled the T-Rex and you controlled the Manta Ray, and that just absolutely blew my mind.
I forgot about the T-Rex and the Manta Ray. Yes, they were incredible. Yes, I've forgotten about those. But yeah, and the time you played the early games like Battle Toshinden and games like that, and it was just the 3D was moving around, and Ridge Racer, just wonderful.
Yeah, it was like a giant leap for the gaming industry when I first, to go from like 2D Mega Drive stuff to PlayStation, and even when PlayStation did 2D, done it that much better than a Mega Drive.
Yeah. I remember you're saying now about so the guy just now who asked me about import gaming. Of course, I've forgotten with the PlayStation. Of course, we used to stick the biro in the. Do you ever stick the biro in the hole where the hood comes down and
so you could play import games?
I think it was closed. Yeah. Bit of blue tack and a biro in there, bent over, change discs quickly. Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, we used to do that all the time. That was a real art form. You could do that well.
If you had a real good setup, you could get the spring that sat on top of, you know, the spike, and it went straight into the hole. Yeah.
Just as the discs stop for a minute for to catch the next bit of information. Just be quick in, bang, off we go. Yeah.
So were you doing that in the review rooms as well then?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We'd get like early copies of the games or whatever, you know, and we'd have to play them. And maybe Sony would have sent you one or two of their test stations, which were blue PlayStations, and the blue PlayStations were invaluable. You'd get sent them so you could play unfinished copies of the game and everything, but you had to sign your life away for one of those. And if you were in a big publishing house and someone was using the test station and you had to hit your deadline, you had to find another way to play the games. So we used to do that with the PlayStation so that we could get on with our jobs.
I thought that was just us who were playing all the copied games off our friends who was doing that.
No. That was us as well, because that was the only way sometimes we could get software to play that was unfinished software that was sent to us by the soft codes, and we didn't have the development station to play it on, so we'd have to trick the PlayStations so we could get them available for review.
Brilliant. I've got another question. It's again from Retro Bear Russ. What does Dave think of the mini console? So all the minis that are coming out currently, the HD ones. Have you played any? Do you have any? What's your opinion?
I've been excited by a few of them in that I thought brilliant, and then I've seen the software lineup on all of them, and I've just thought I'm not going to bother. There's not one that I want. I don't understand why after all these years, with so many games experts out there, why they can't put the absolute fucking best software on these consoles. All of them have got about, say you've got 20 games, 7 are good, the rest are all B and C titles. There's some awful software on them. Games I don't want to play. I mean, you could put together a mini console for any system, and you could put 20 games on there that would be absolute killer. Why not do that now? Because no one's going to sell those games again. No one's playing those games. Everybody who wants to play them has probably got some kind of emulation of them anyway. So put them on there. The reason for cheapskating and putting some crap ones on with some good ones, I mean, all I can imagine is there's some poor negotiation going on somewhere where somebody's going, yeah, you can have that title, but you've got to put this one on as well. And okay, yeah. But it's weakening the brand. You know why not? Because the soft codes, the people that produce these games, they're not selling these games. These games aren't going to sell anymore, you know, and emulation's rife. So you give the companies permission to put really good I don't understand the poor level of game titles on them. That's the thing, because I think they're a nice idea. And you've got to be careful. And what was the one that came out recently? Was it the Sinclair one came out recently? Was it Spectrum or something?
Commodore 64's had
64, one. Yeah, 64. My wife almost got me a Christmas. She said, I could get you the C64 because, you know, I know you used to love that. I'm like, but would I love it now? Yeah, it's just like, I loved it then. I love the memory that I had of playing those games then. And I love talking about those games. But, you know, do I really want to play those games again? Probably I don't. Probably as soon as I start playing them, I want to be putting The Witcher on PS4, or I will be wanting to put, you know, something else on 360. You know what I mean? I want to be playing War Dragons on my iPad or something. You know, I don't want to be playing those games anymore, really. So it's a nice idea, but
oh, I just lost you for a sec.
Okay, buddy.
There.
Yeah.
Where
do I see games going in the next 20 years?
Yeah, the gaming industry in the next 20 years.
I don't. It's going to just be one big block, isn't it? One big blob. The trouble is, the thing about the games industry and gaming that made it interesting was the color and the diversification, and it's slowly just being swallowed up by bigger corporations, and as that's happening, so the the variety in the software is disappearing because the same people are making the games, and gradually things are dying. It's a bit like the world. Okay, controversial, yes, but the world and how all the borders are down, how everybody should have power to go and live in every country, and you can come over here and we'll go over there and all that kind of thing. And all the SJWs, they all want that to happen. It's one world. We should all be one world, and all that nonsense. But I like going to other countries because they're different. But if all the populations mingle, eventually you're just going to get countries that are almost the same as each other, except for perhaps the temperature of the weather, because all the little unique things about those countries and the people that live there are going to go, because gradually they're going to come to our country and we're going to go to their country, and everything's going to find a middle ground. And with software, that's kind of what's happening. The big companies are taking over, and you're slowly getting all the edges just being trimmed off games, and they're becoming very, very bland. And how do I see it go 20 years? I really don't know. I mean, could it become super real? I mean, and more immersive? I mean, the VR thing, I really don't know. I mean, it feels like popular music now, doesn't it? It feels burnt out. It feels like it's been done, but it shouldn't be feeling that way. But it does feel that way. I
personally think graphically we can't get a fat lot better than what we've got, which was always the big leap between the systems, is how much more better graphically. So I think you're right. The only way the gaming industry can improve is by actually physically putting you in that game, which is like your VRs, which it may go to the extent where you get like hand extensions and touchy feely. But then you become in that dangerous world of when are you in the real world and when you're in the gaming world, sort of thing.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem. I mean, they've tried virtual reality so many times, and it doesn't really work. And you look like a real knob if you're caught doing it. You know what I mean? If someone walks into the room and you got your goggles on, and you go, like when the 360, when came out years ago, and people had the headphones with a little microphone on, and they're playing Call of Duty. They're going, in the corner, run in the corner, get over there. Yes, they'll behind you. And really, it's just a fat bloke sat in his front room with his TV dinner by his feet, and it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. There's something not very cool about that.
You just reminded me to move my TV dinner there, Dave. Nave's asked this question 2 or 3 times. I keep missing it, so I'll ask you now. Sure. Who's your favourite character from a video game?
That's a hard one, isn't it? That's a hard one. What does it take to become a favourite video game character? I don't know. I mean, I was always pretty fond of the guy that brought the ice cream on in Speedball 2. He was enigmatic and brave, wasn't he? Gutsy. Favorite video game character, as in a franchise, maybe. I've never really been a big fan of video game characters. God, I always thought Goro was pretty cool in Mortal Kombat. I genuinely don't know. They come and go, don't they? They come and go.
You just played the game. You weren't really bothered who you were playing at.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to be Larry and Laddie and say Lara Croft, but I mean, she was a bit one-dimensional, really, wasn't she? Well, she's very three-dimensional in some areas, but one-dimensional generally. I don't think I ever really had one. There wasn't ever. There must have been a character that was pretty cool, but I can't think of who it was. Maybe Parappa the Rapper.
We'll go with Parappa. There's a question here from Eddie Roller X Core, and it's kind of linked into one that Cooper World asks as well. What was the greatest game you reviewed from Japan that never got a UK release? And Cooper's World also says, have you ever reviewed a game that never got released? So it's kind of similar sort of question.
Okay. Japan one. I can't answer because I really can't. I really can't think of one. If I'm honest with you. Have I ever reviewed a game that didn't get released? Yes. Games World, when we launched Games World magazine and we got the official license for it, on the front cover we put a game called New Breed, because everybody had seen New Breed at E3 and at ECTS, which was the European Computer Game Show, which a lot of people don't realize we had in this country for years and then threw away. It was awesome looking in its early days, and the graphics were next level on the beat 'em up sections and everything. And so we beat all the other magazines to get it on our front cover, and we put it out as our front cover game on the debut issue of Games World magazine, Paragon's biggest launch. And then the game got canned after we went on sale, so it never ever came out, which was quite alarming, really, because it didn't do our reader credibility any good on that first issue.
Think things could only get better though from issue 1 then.
Yeah. Well, what happened was we knew we needed a really big second issue. So the biggest game that was coming out at the time was Mortal Kombat 2 was coming out, which was going to be fucking huge from Midway and Acclaim. And so we went to them and asked them if we could have it for our front cover. But some of the bigger magazines that were more established than us had already signed it up. And obviously they didn't want to give it to us because we were a new magazine. They wanted to give it to the bigger magazines who had the larger circulations. So we sent them our advertising schedule for the adverts. And somehow the advertising schedule had our on sale date as being later than it was. And so they agreed to let us have the magazine, the game for the front cover of the magazine, because we were coming out later than the magazine they'd given the exclusive to. But miraculously, we came out before that magazine, so we did really, really well out of it, and Games World was sorted. And to this day, I don't know how they got the wrong on sale date from our advertising department.
These things happen, don't they, in translation?
I know. Such a lucky event.
A couple of non-game, well, one's kind of game related. My friend Mark Burnt Out Culture wants to know who your favourite tattoo artist is. I can tell you now, it's not the one who's done your fucking tattoos, Mark. That's for sure.
Favorite tattoo artist? There's some great tattoo artists out there. 2010, 2011, I became the editor of Tattoo Master magazine, which was a trade magazine. I did that for a year or so while I was running my studio, so I was able to meet a lot of them. I mean, that's the good thing about the tattoo industry, is you can meet your heroes, you know, because they're just genuine people, and if you've got the money to make an appointment, you can go and meet them. My favorite tattoo artist is probably a guy called I like Jeff Gugwai. He's an American artist. I think that's how you pronounce his surname. It's Gogue. He's incredible. And I like another guy called Johan Finet, who's from Sweden, who owns a studio called Evil Twins. And those two guys, they're just next level, you know, tattooing, painting. They're just incredible artists. And I love all their work. It would be a dream to be tattooed by either of those guys.
Nice. A second part to that question is from Eddie Rollercore X as well. He's got a lot of tattoos. You want to know if you've got any gaming related tattoos, Dave?
That's a good question. Just trying to think now. Have I got any gaming related ones? Do you know what? I don't think I have. I've got a South Park tattoo. I've got the Joker. No, I haven't got any gaming ones. No gaming ones at all, because it's difficult, isn't it? You don't quite get that connection with gaming that you want it on your body. Do you know what I mean? So, some people do. I've done gaming tattoos for people, you know, certain logos from certain games, certain characters from certain games. We often get asked to do the Pokemon tattoos and things like that. But I don't have any gaming tattoos on me because I don't think there's anyone I feel that connection with in the gaming industry. Oh, I feel a bit bad that I don't have one there.
I think you should squeeze one in somewhere, Dave. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So let me guess. How many people come to your tattoo studio wanting a gaming tattoo from Dave Perry?
More and more. It didn't used to, because because unless you were actually in the know, if you like, if you were a gamer, people didn't know. Because when I left the games industry, like I say, I edited film magazines for 7 years. And then I did car magazine. I did diesel car magazine. Then I opened the studio full time. And then I did Tattoo Master. And for the people of Torquay, the people who are my tattoo people, they didn't put two and two together, because I've always had the fortunate ability in that, you know, most people, if they're reasonably well known, I have no illusions, I'm Z-list or something, but if they're reasonably well known, when they go out, they put a hat on or a coat or something, you know, they cover themselves up. With me, if I take my hat off, no one knows who I am. Do you know what I mean? The bandana is wonderful because it's a reverse disguise. If I take it off, I'm invisible. It's It's like my superpower is being able to take my bandana off. It's amazing.
Question, actually, while we're talking about how you did a movie magazine, Flashback TNT wants to know, what's Dave's favourite movie? So what's your favourite movie of all time? And tell us some about the reviews that you used to obviously do that sort of era. That'd be interesting for us all as well.
Yeah, I mean, my favourite movie of all time is The Big Lebowski. Absolutely love that film by the Coen brothers. Other films I loved Guardians of the Galaxy films. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I like a nice horror, that, and Saw films, things like that. I like, just trying to think, the Matrix movies were a big favorite of mine for a while. 12 Monkeys. I'll watch anything basically with Keanu Reeves in it. I think he's absolutely incredible. I know it's naff to say it. I think John Travolta as well, very watchable. And Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, the three of those guys, I like almost everything they do. The Aviator by DiCaprio is incredible, with DiCaprio in, not by him. I liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood recently. That was very, very good. Joker was incredible film. The Harley Quinn movie was not. Most overrated film of all time, Endgame, Avengers Endgame. What a piece of shit. Hate that film. Absolutely hate that film. And I'll argue with anybody over it. And I do argue with everybody over it because everybody seems to think it was absolutely brilliant. You know, I got people saying, oh, it was such an important movie for my generation. It was shite. Terrible film. Absolutely terrible film.
I'm known because these lot who are in the comments here take the piss out of me because they say, "Are you really into games and stuff like that?" Because I'm not into Marvel. I don't like none of the Marvel films. It does nothing for me. You know, they tell me I'm not a real nerd because I'm not into Marvel, but it's definitely not one of my passions. Agree on Keanu Reeves and DiCaprio though. I've been quoted to say on this stream that I actually enjoy Romeo and Juliet with DiCaprio in. That was my guilty. That was my guilty pleasure film. That was
all right. When I met my wife, that was in her DVD player. I think first time I went round to her flat, like, you know. So it's one of those films, isn't it? It's a beautiful film, so well filmed.
That is why I bought it, because I was currently dating a girl and she was coming round to my house to watch some DVDs, and I realised I was like you, Dave, man. It was full of horrors, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Critters, stuff like that. And I was thinking, there's fuck all here for her to watch, man. So and that was the film I bought, and I've still got the same copy now. I went and bought a copy of Leonardo DiCaprio, Romeo and Juliet. There's a question here from Stu. I hope it's not a joke question. 2TK. Does Dave know Mark Jenkins?
No.
I don't know who Mark Jenkins is. Maybe someone from Torquay. That's probably why he asked.
Does Mark Jenkins know Dave? Because Dave doesn't know him.
I don't know who he is. Apparently, if you're from Torquay, you should know who he is. I have no clue who you are. Yeah.
Is that what Mark Jenkins says?
Yeah. He must know you. But yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I was petrified of horrors growing up as a child, because I've said on this stream before, I used to share a room with my brother who was 13 years older, and he used to watch stuff when he thought I was asleep, and I'd wake up and it terrified me. And it was almost a case of when I was growing up, I had to watch them films to get over it, and then I became massively into my horror films. Like I had to watch all the old ones from the 80s that had terrified me before I could get over it, like sort of thing.
Yeah, I know. Like an antidote.
Yeah. Someone saying American Werewolf in London. I remember waking up. I was sleeping on the settee downstairs, and every Saturday night, my brother and his mates used to come around because they had to babysit me. And I woke up at the point where the guys at the side of the hospital bed all teared up talking to his mate. And as a child, I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on here?
And you watch it now and you think, well.
As I say, like, you know, my parents didn't give me many films as a kid. Like, they'd watch Jaws in the middle of the day, and like I'd hide behind the settee and stuff. But it's put me in good stead going forward. I'm not a snowflake or nothing. You know, it's done me no harm, sort of thing. So when you were writing, what sort of films were you covering then? What era was that you were doing? You know, some of your favourite films that you covered for that magazine.
Well, from 99 to 2007. DVD monthly ran. So the films we covered were the stuff that was coming out on DVD. So it was current stuff, but it was the old stuff as well. You know, so it was quite a good era because DVD was really taking off. So we had films like The Exorcist and Clockwork Orange and that had been previously banned, they kind of came round again, you know. And at the same time, you had the early Pierce Brosnan Bonds and a lot of big films. Of course, the Lord of the Rings films became big, and Harry Potter. They were all the big films around then. But it was whatever was coming out on DVD, and it was wonderful because being such a huge film fan, you just get sent stuff. It's just sent free movies all the time, which was just brilliant. Always new stuff to watch, and you'd be taken, to premieres and things like that. It was a really, really good. If you're a film fan writing about films, it's just lovely, because when you're a gamer, you're writing about games. You know, you got the passion. It's great, but you got to play them. Do you know what I mean? You want to give something a good review, you got to put 2-3 days worth of playing in on it to get somewhere in it. With a film, you know, you can watch it for 2.5 hours and you've seen everything there is to see, you know. So it's pretty instant. It's a lot quicker, a lot easier, and you build a really good. My DVD collection is incredible.
So were you getting sent them to review? I'm guessing like pre-release sort of thing, similar to when you were doing the games.
Yes, yeah, a lot of them. And of course, the thing with some of them is you can review them anyway. Yeah, you can't review the DVD because you don't know what the extras are, maybe, but you can write the film review before the film even appears, because The Exorcist, you know, you've seen that so many times anyway, you know, and so it's only a matter of, you can have it written before the DVD comes in. Once you know what the extras are, you're done. Because the extras used to be a big thing. You know, people used to worry about what was on the extras disc and everything, you know, on a DVD. That was all part of it, wasn't it? There was all sorts of new things. There was things like you had alternate camera angles and things like that, allegedly. None of it ever got used in the end, but there was a lot of it. And the
old deleted scenes, the deleted scenes is a favourite in it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And you want all that stuff, and the commentary is always good. You know, I like the commentary when you watch the film. If you love the film, it's nice to go back and watch it and hear the actors or the producers just telling a few stories along the way. You've got to be really into a film to sit through a whole film like that. But you know, if you are, it's good.
I've got something to say on that while we're talking commentaries. A channel of mine, he's not in the comments at the moment, who I know. He's called Monkey Spaz 5000 is his channel. Right. He actually does fan commentary to Games World and Games Master.
Does he?
Yeah, and he's done lots of them. So I'll send you a link so you can, you know, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he takes the piss out of you on him, Dave, but if he does, it's all tongue-in-cheek. But
Did he do the Mario 64 incident one?
I don't know if he did, but
someone did that one and did a commentary over the top of it, and someone told me about it, and I watched it. It was quite funny.
Yeah, he's done loads. He does Bad Influence as well. Someone actually asked earlier in the stream, and I forgot to ask, what was your opinion on Bad Influence? Like, you know, what was your opinion on that as a show?
Well, it wasn't just in my opinion. It was kind of like a we opinion, because we were Games Master and they were Bad Influence. You know what I mean? And it was what people don't, what the new generations don't understand so much is that, you know, in the 80s and the 90s, it was tribal. You were Atari or you were Amiga. You were Nintendo or you were Sega. You were PlayStation or you were Sega. Then later on, it's PlayStation and Microsoft. You always chose a side. It was always you were Apple or you were Windows. You know, you always chose a side. And when the TV shows came out, you were Games Master or you were Bad Influence. And Bad Influence obviously had more viewers than us because it was on a prime time, you know, children's TV time, on a major channel on ITV, I think it was. Whereas we were Channel 4 at 6 o'clock, which was a weird time. But we always knew we had more credibility than they did. So we kind of thumbed our noses at them a little bit. You know, it was like Andy Crane and Violet Berlin, you know, they were okay. You know, they did a good job. They're quality presenters, but there was a lack of edge, and we knew we had the edge.
What I'd say there is, as you say, they were quality presenters, but you guys at Games Master, you had gamers who were also like yourself, who could present as well. So you had that edge over them. Someone asked earlier, Jet or Danny Bear. Now, my question is, did they have any interest in games, or were they just fed everything they said and there for eye candy sort of thing?
Pure eye candy.
Pure
eye candy. I don't think, not a lot of interest. I'm not aware of either of them having any interest in games. I mean, Jet became our games mistress in season 2 of Games World, because originally the games mistress was Jane Goldman, who was Jonathan Ross's wife, and is now writing Hollywood films, etc. she was our original games mistress, and then Jet took over from her for the second one. But I think, like Patrick Moore, she was purely there for the presence that she provided rather than her interest in the hobby. And Danny was just teeth and bum, really. She was very famous at the time. When I did the shop opening with her, etc., she was dating Ryan Giggs, I think, and she was on The Word, which is a big music show. So she was very much a part of that whole hot toddy scene that was going on in the 90s, where you had the lads mags and you had certain girls who the boys were all into and would appear in Sky and Loaded and things like that for interviews and that. And she was one of those, and quite rightly so.
Did you ever get to meet Patrick Moore, or was he purely just doing that like sort of CGI sort of thing? Did you ever get to meet him?
Well, we had production meetings with Patrick Moore. I didn't ever get to go to one. They used to do them, I'm told. He used to like doing them in Indian restaurants because he used to like Indian food. And he would apparently order just about everything on the menu. He used to like a huge feast of Indian food. And he would sit there eating all the Indian food, and they would do the production things with him. And then he would just go into the studio, and he would just be filmed just purely by himself. And he'd be given the lines, and he would just deliver the lines. They'd be given some more lines, he'd deliver the lines. And it's just like his head, like, sticking through a blue screen or whatever, and then they put the background of that on later. He never came to any of the show productions that I'm aware of.
So to follow that up, did he attend any? Did you have like Christmas parties and stuff like that? What was the party inside like of being like a TV presenter? And that was it as glamorous as I imagine?
It would. Our first Christmas party was spent in Hewland's production offices, and it was just a production team, and we got absolutely hammered. We had karaoke. I remember doing a particularly good rendition of Sex Machine by James Brown, which involved me being on the floor and doing something that looked like The Worm but wasn't. And then when the owners of the company, one of the owners of the company, who I thought was a bit stiff, went to the toilet later in the evening, I took all the rubbish and actually boarded him in the toilet so he couldn't get out again, which didn't go down very well, actually, and involved in a lot of cleaning up later on. So it wasn't very glamorous at all. The actual Christmas parties after that, I never went to any of them because I didn't work for the company, if you like. I worked for the magazine, for Paragon and Rapide and THQ, and I'd be brought in to do the TV shows, and then I'd go away again. And I don't remember ever being invited to any of the show parties. I think that was just the production teams used to go to those, or just perhaps everyone but me. Wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe. Last kind of question.
Yes.
If you could go back and do it all again, would you do it the same?
Would I do it the same? Yeah, I think so. I think I'd push a bit more on a few things. I was very naive. Like when we used to do Games World, I didn't live in London then. I lived on the south coast. I was in Bournemouth, at Paragon. I would go up, and I'd have nowhere to live, and we'd be filming for like a week, say, or 6-7 days. I had nowhere to live, so I had to get people who I didn't really know, who were on the production team, would let me sleep on their sofa beds or on their floors in a spare room or something like that. It wasn't glamorous at all. You got paid very badly. Games World was decent pay. It was okay. GamesMaster, the show I did, the Notorious show, the Mario show, which was the last show I ever did for them. That was on a Saturday. I didn't get paid a penny for that. I gave up my Saturday and went in, and I've suffered all that grief for that show ever since. And I didn't get paid a single penny for it. So now I might push a little bit more, but I probably wouldn't change much because they were good days, and I was doing what I enjoyed, and I was getting moderately famous for doing it, which, as a young man, is what you want. It's just it opens doors.
Awesome. You've certainly lived a great life, Dave, and still are. We'd like to see you all at the events. And my final question is: you got to meet a lot of famous people. Just name some of your favourites, and did they live up to who you expected to meet, sort of thing?
Yeah, let me think who I met. Frank Bruno was a nice guy. I didn't realise he was going to have a few problems later on in life, because he always came over as a really great guy. I mean, one of the nice moments I had with him was sitting in the green room on season 3, and he was talking about a couple of dogs he had, a couple of Rottweilers, I think, and he knew who I was because his kids watched the show. And so he knew me by first name and shook my hand, which felt really good because he was Frank Bruno. You know, he was this huge boxer. Footballers, met a lot of fun footballers. I enjoyed playing FIFA with Vinnie Jones and Eric. Was it Eric Wise? I'm not sure if he was there actually. It was Graham Lasso, John Barnes. Vinnie Jones was hilarious. Only person I've played FIFA with who actually genuinely was upset with his goalkeeper because his goalkeeper wasn't playing very well. He was actually swearing at his own goalkeeper, getting very angry. Of all the famous people I've met, the nicest ones, Dexter Fletcher probably was a very, very nice guy. I'm so glad he's doing well in his life now. Robbie Williams was great fun. Robbie Williams, take that. Last story before I go. Okay, we're on Games World Season 2, Games Master Season 2. And our celebrity guest for the show couldn't show up. I called in, so the runners came up to me from the producer and they said, Dave, your show you're doing this afternoon, so and so's not showing up. We've got 2 options. We can have the Pasadenas, who at the time were about number 4 in the charts for some song, or we can have this boy band called Take That. And I said to them, who the fuck are Take That? To get the Pasadenas. I said, I've never heard of Take That. Why do we want a boy band on the show? And they went back to the producer with my advice, and they booked Take That anyway. And Take That showed up, and about an hour before Take That showed up, all these young girls started showing up. Tons and tons of young girls, 15, 16, 17, short little skirts. Loads of girls just started coming into that big water pump set. And it was unusual because we had a mainly male audience. Of course, I've always said that one of my biggest regrets was the fact that as a TV personality in the 90s, I only appealed to 14-year-old boys. So these young girls started showing up. We were like, well, this is a bit different. And then Take That showed up, and all these handsome young boys, and they were very, very polite, very, very courteous. Robbie was mucking about a lot, as you would expect. And the girls gave them dummies and things like this, and they were playing up to the girls and that. And they were lovely. And they were playing Bomberman. And as they were playing, so one guy laid bombs and blew a lot of them up. I can't remember who it was. And I remember saying in the commentary, you better get used to things blowing up in your faces, boys. Meaning they were just going to their careers were going to blow up sooner or later because they were shit. And Jane Hewland was in the production office, and she said, I really like that line. Keep that line in when we do it again. So we shot again, and I put it in again. And of course, they turned out to be like the biggest thing on the planet in the next couple of years. And I'd sat there being disrespectful and didn't want them on the show initially over the Pasadenas, you know. What do I know? Don't come to me for music advice.
Movies and games are Dave's expertise, but music, he's not got a clue. Last question, very last question. Is he still gutted that he didn't get George Best on? That's from Horatio Van Basten. So was George Best due to come on one of the shows?
So when you said Horatio Van Basten, I thought it was another footballer.
No, that's his name.
Huge. That's one of my biggest regrets with the whole thing is I was a huge George Best fan. Still am. His book, The Good, the Bad, and the Bubbly. If no one's read it, read it. One of the best football books you'll ever read. We had him earmarked for Games Master Season 1. And we had the Manchester United game, which I think was by a company called Chrysalis at the time. I'm not sure. We got them to program. This is something I threw away. I ripped it, I broke it, threw it away. It was on a disc, a specially programmed disc of Manchester United's greatest 11 against Liverpool's greatest 11. And we had Emlyn Hughes booked to play Liverpool and George Best booked to play Manchester United. And they were going to play their 2 greatest 11s. Brilliant television. How great. And I was going to meet my footballing hero. I was delighted. And then before the show filmed, Jane, rightly or wrongly, decided she didn't want to go with George Best because he was too unreliable. You know, he could or couldn't show up, and he may or may not show up in the best of condition, which, you know, was his reputation. So we got a friend of mine in the end called Simon Reynolds, who came in and he played the game instead against Emlyn Hughes. So I didn't get George in the show, so I was gutted. And then a year or so later, there was a football game launch. I can't remember what the game is now. One of the big ones, maybe Pro Evo or something. And it was at a football cafe in London. And we went to the football cafe in London, and they had all these professional footballers there, past and present. There was like Chris Walker from Spurs and Pat Jennings and all these other football players. Terry Venables was there. I talked to Terry Venables at the bar for a while. And there's loads of them there. And my mate was with me, who was my best man at my wedding, called Mark Garrity. And he said, Dave, you seen who's over there? I'm like, no, George Best. I'm like, shit, that's my footballing hero. He had people all around him, swarming around him. And I said to him, look, I'm going to buy Guinness. So I'll buy him a Guinness because he's Irish. So I expect he'll drink Guinness. I said, I'll take one over to him. I'll tell him that he's my football hero, ask him to sign something, and then just leave him alone. So I don't want to pester the man. So I went to the bar to buy Guinness. Terry Venables started talking to me about a few things. So I chatted to Terry Venables. The Guinnesses came. I turned around, and George had gone. He as is his way, he was a bit of a will-o'-the-wisp character, I think. And I think he'd had enough probably of being hassled and having to be nice to people and that when he maybe wasn't in the mood. And he just took to his heels and left. And I was so gutted. And to this day, I wish I'd just gone over and been one of that crowd. And just to have been in his presence for a few seconds would have been wonderful. But yeah, I'd like to have got George on the show. What a man.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, anyone who's a footballing fan knows how good George Best was. I'm a big footballing fan, and you can only appreciate his ability from back then. That's sure.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of the stream, Dave. And what I like to do is I like to get each of my guests just to send a message out for everyone who's been watching. So if you've got a message for the people watching, that would be great, Dave.
Yeah, sure. I mean, keep gaming. Keep playing what you enjoy playing, and more important than anything at this moment in time, stay safe, stay indoors, and just have fun. You're video gamers. You've been where's the shirt? You've been self-isolating since 1982. What's a few more months going to hurt? What's a few more months going to hurt?
Brilliant. Yeah, that's super. Dave, I'd like to personally thank you for coming on the stream. It's great to have someone who I remember seeing on my TV screen sit here and talk to me, and I know the guys who've been watching are massively appreciate it, Dave. So I just want to thank you for everyone, really. So
okay, you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me on. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
No worries, and we'll do it again in the future. Obviously, when lockdown's over, we'll have another different sort of topic of stream, and it'd be great to have you on again, Dave.
Brilliant.
Super. I'm just going to
thumbs up.
I'm going to drop you backstage while I do a sign off, Dave. Okay.
Okay, buddy. See you later.
Cheers. Right, guys. Massive round of applause to Dave, man. I'll admit I was nervous talking to him. It's difficult when it's someone who you've seen on TV as a kid, but what I can say is Dave is one of the most genuine and nice guys I have ever met and spoke to. And, for him to come on my humble little channel here and talk to all you guys and tell some fantastic stories, hats off to him, because, there's people who are as famous and, well-known as him who would probably turn their nose up to it, and he's not. He's come to talk to me, and he's come to talk to you lot. So I can just say thank you for everyone who's been watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll be back tomorrow with I've only got one guest again tomorrow, but he's another guy who you might like to hear from. So stick around, and I'll see you all tomorrow evening. Good night.